The key felt unnaturally heavy in my palm, its brass surface slick with a cold, oily residue that smelled faintly of wet earth and rusted iron. My father's will contained a single, handwritten addendum. Not a final blessing, but a command that echoed through the empty study. The basement door must remain sealed, its contents forgotten. From behind that heavy oak door came a sound, not a knock, but a slow, rhythmic scratching, like fingernails dragging across the inside of the wood grain. The air grew thick and stale, carrying the scent of ozone and something older. The sweet, cloying odor of decay that had been trapped for decades. Every instinct screamed to turn back, but my fingers moved on their own, guided by a morbid curiosity that felt less like choice and more like compulsion. As the lock clicked open, the temperature dropped sharply, and a whisper, too faint to be words, but laden with intent, seemed to seep through the newly formed crack in the doorway. What lay beyond wasn't a storage room or forgotten workshop. It was a shrine to something my father had tried and failed to contain. And in that final moment before I crossed the threshold, I understood. His last words weren't a warning for my safety. They were a confession. Clause 7b. To my daughter, Emma, I leave the house, the estate, everything, on the condition that she never, under any circumstances, opens the locked door to my study. He promised that if I broke that rule, he had left something behind that would make me wish I hadn't. For 5 years, I obeyed, until I found the photograph, and I realized my father wasn't just keeping a secret, he was keeping a person. The backstory begins with warm, filtered shots of our suburban home in Austin, Texas. Home video-style clips show young Emma with her father Robert, his kind face smiling as they build a treehouse together. But beneath that sentimental melody, if you listen closely, you can hear faint scratching from the basement. Photos on a mantelpiece. My father, Robert Miller, was my hero. A quiet, gentle man who could mend my bicycles, show me how to change a tire, and craft anything in his workshop. After my mother passed when I was 8, it was just the two of us. He was a retired architect, and his study became his sanctuary. That solid oak door, secured with a brass lock he personally installed, remained perpetually shut. Just my boring blueprints and tax documents, kiddo, he'd murmur while ruffling my hair. His explanation settled like dust, and I never thought to question it. Now, standing at his graveside, that unexamined promise feels like a hollow echo. Rain pattered on black umbrellas as Emma, now in her late 20s, stood alone at the graveside. When he passed suddenly, a heart attack. They claimed, my world fractured into fragments. Then, at the will reading, the lawyer, a man with the demeanor of hewn granite, laid out the terms. The house was mine, he stated, his words carrying the weight of damp earth and old secrets. The trust was generous, but its single condition was absolute. The study door must remain sealed forever. The estate executor would perform an annual inspection, ensuring the vow was kept. Within that sealed space, the air grew heavy with the scent of aged paper and something faintly metallic. It was a promise bound not just by law, but by a deeper, unspoken dread. If the lock showed signs of tampering, every possession would be donated to a charity I'd never heard of, the New Dawn Foundation. It felt like a calculated cruelty, a final, controlling mystery from the man I believed shared everything. Grief curdled into a slow-burning anger that settled in my chest. What secret was so terrible it required this final, chilling safeguard? The forbidden love letters were still hidden, and the financial crimes remained unresolved. But I tried to move on. I began dating a man named Mark, hoping a new connection might distract me from the secrets I was carrying. But in quiet moments, the air would grow thick with the scent of old paper and something metallic, like dried ink. Every time Mark touched my hand, I felt a sticky residue that wasn't there, and I knew I hadn't truly escaped anything. The promotion should have been everything, but that door, it became a gravitational anomaly in the heart of my home, pulling at my sanity with relentless curiosity. Then, the escalation began. A metallic tang, like ozone and old iron, began to stain the air, a scent that clung to the back of my throat. Every mundane task became a battle, my focus perpetually stolen by that silent threshold. A primal awareness of the unknown settling into my bones. Mark's frustration boiled over in the dim hallway. It's just a room, Emma. He's gone. Open it and be done. Emma's voice was defensive, almost a whisper. You don't understand. It was his last wish, or his last way of messing with your head. Mark snapped back, the words hanging in the stale air. Mark didn't last. The door did. The annual checks from the stone-faced lawyer felt like inspections in a prison I owned. Then, last Tuesday, everything changed. I was in the attic, looking for Christmas decorations, when I knocked over an old box of my mom's things. The air grew heavy with the scent of aged paper and something else, something faintly metallic, like old coins. A dusty cardboard box spilled its forgotten contents across the floor. Emma sifted through the musty books and faded scarves, the scent of decay clinging to her fingers. Her fingertips brushed against something smooth and cool, a faded Polaroid hidden beneath the fabric. The image revealed a younger Robert, beaming with his arm around a woman who was not Emma's mother. The photograph revealed a woman with fiery red hair, her face caught mid-laugh on a tropical beach. Faded ink on the white border read, R and L, Key West, 87. My mother's name was Claire, not L. The question hung in the air like a physical weight. Who was L? The scent of old paper and salt water rose from the photograph. A ghost from a place I'd never been. Each detail felt like a piece of a puzzle that shouldn't exist. That single letter, L, became an anchor for every unspoken story, every hidden truth that had been buried with the sand of that distant beach. 1987. That was the year before I was born. A sick feeling started in my stomach. I tore the attic apart. The evidence thickened around her in the attic's gloom. Decades of long-distance call receipts to a New York number, a birthday card signed, "All my love, L," and then the final piece. A sealed envelope addressed to her father from the New Dawn Fertility Clinic. Her gaze dropped to the envelope, its paper cool and slightly damp to the touch in the musty air. The attic's scent of old wood and forgotten things grew heavy as she looked toward the door, as if she could see through the floors to the study below. A whisper of dread settled in her chest as the two words echoed in the silence. New Dawn. The name in the will matched perfectly. Not a charity, but a clinic. Fragments, jagged and grotesque, began locking together in my mind. The air thickened with the sterile scent of antiseptic and something metallic. Each piece clicked with a finality that tightened my chest. My father's business trips were frequent. His sadness a distant, unexplained weight in the house. That locked door wasn't just a barrier shielding me from a dark secret. It was a prison containing one. The air in the hall grew thick with the scent of old paper and something faintly metallic. A single, burning question took hold. I needed to know who L was. I dialed the New York number, but it was disconnected. A dead line humming with empty static. Desperate, I hired a private investigator online. A faceless transaction in the digital shadows. For 48 hours, I waited in the thick silence of my apartment, the air tasting of dust and old coffee. Then the phone rang. A sharp, invasive sound that made my breath catch in my throat. The number was registered to a Laura Archer. Her last known address was on the Upper East Side. She taught music, but the records show she never married. The details were sparse, yet the air in the room grew thick with a metallic scent. My pulse thundered in my ears as the words, "pancreatic cancer 4 years ago," hung in the air. The detective's voice, flat and final, cut through the heavy silence. No spouse, no siblings. A metallic scent, like old pennies, seemed to seep from the very walls of the office. In that moment, the case transformed from a simple inquiry into a yawning void of the unknown. The obituary mentioned a daughter who had predeceased her. A car accident in 2012. The scent of ozone and wet pavement hung in the air, thick with memory. A faint metallic taste, like iron, lingered on her tongue. A ghost of impact. In the reflection, the tear fell. And for a moment, another face seemed to stare back. Younger, frozen in time. Laura had a daughter once. A daughter who died. That same year, my father descended into paranoia. He installed a new, heavier lock on his study door. A fortress against an unseen threat. Now, I stand before it, my palm pressing against the cold, unyielding wood. For the first time, the dread of defying my father's one rule was eclipsed by a desperate, heartbreaking compulsion. What awaited inside? The blueprints for a life I never knew existed? The air grew thick with the scent of old paper and forgotten years. The sound is deafeningly loud, a slow turn, a click that echoes. The door swings open silently. The room is dark, dusty. The air carries the scent of damp earth and rust. This wasn't an office. It was a shrine. It wasn't a study. It was a bedroom, a perfectly preserved teenage girl's bedroom, frozen in time. The air hung thick with the scent of faded perfume and old paper, cold and utterly still. The band posters were faded, curling at the edges like old scars. A thick, dusty rug swallowed what little light dared enter. On the desk, textbooks from 2012 Saturday untouched, their spines cracked with age. In the corner, the violin case rested, its latch tarnished and cold to the touch. On the dresser stood framed photographs. One showed Laura, another my father with Laura. The third frame held an image that made my breath catch. A scent of old paper and dust filled the air, thick and cloying. My fingers brushed the cold glass of the final frame. A primal dread coiling in my gut. My eyes. The handwriting was unmistakably a teenager's looping, frantic letters that seemed to dance across the page. Narrator. Dad visited today. He took me to Coney Island, the air thick with the scent of salt and rust. He's the best, he whispered, his hand cold and damp against mine. He promised once I graduate, we won't have to hide anymore. The words hung in the air like ozone before a strike. He'll tell Emma. Emma's trembling hands fumbled with the drawer, the scent of aged paper and dust filling her nostrils. Her fingers brushed against crisp legal documents, their cold, smooth surfaces a stark contrast to her clammy skin. The birth certificate's words materialized in the haze of her dread. Lily Archer, father, Robert Miller. A primal understanding gripped her as the narrator's voice cut through the heavy silence. I had a sister, a half-sister, Lily. He built her this perfect room here, in his real family's home, a place she could visit. A secret life nested inside mine. The air here carries the faint, sweet scent of decay, like forgotten flowers pressed between old pages. She was gone before he could tell Emma, before they could become the family he'd envisioned. His grief, his guilt. He sealed it all away here, in this room. He couldn't bear to take it apart. The air grew heavy with the scent of old wood and something faintly metallic. He couldn't bear for me to see. I sank onto the mattress, the old springs groaning softly under my weight. My fingers found the familiar, threadbare fur of the rabbit among the pillows. Then my eyes fell on the final document before me. It was a trust. The single word seemed to suck the warmth from the room. The New Dawn Trust was the beneficiary, Lily Archer. It was amended after her death to something else entirely. For me, this trust was no punishment. It was a chilling inheritance, thick with the scent of old paper and a deeper, metallic promise. It was her inheritance, her entire college fund, every penny she'd saved. The air in the lawyer's office grew thick with the scent of aged paper and dust. Then she died. And the silence that followed was absolute. The terms of the fund updated automatically, without a soul to witness the change. The funds would sustain the clinic that likely brought her into being. His prohibition wasn't for my protection. It was to preserve his other life, his other daughter, his greatest failure and most profound love, frozen in time forever. In that house, my father had enshrined his secret child within a tomb of faded pink wallpaper and abandoned dreams. Now, in the conclusion, a simple, haunting music box melody returns. Emma sits on the floor of the secret room, her back pressed against Lily's small bed. She isn't crying. She looks utterly hollowed out, a vessel emptied by the truth. She gazed at the faded photo of her father, Laura, and Lily, all caught in a moment of forgotten laughter. The lawyer's call came this morning. The annual inspection. I told him the lock was broken. I heard the cold satisfaction in his voice as he informed me the estate was now forfeit. I was numb to it all. I'd already grieved my father twice. First, to the finality of the grave. Now, to a corrosive truth that dissolved my past. A truth that left nothing but the scent of ash and a hollow, ringing silence in its wake. Emma zipped her single suitcase shut in the dim bedroom. Her gaze lingered down the hallway, where light bled from the study's open door. The house would go to the New Dawn Foundation. Let them turn my sister's shrine into whatever they wished. My father's final secret wasn't hidden behind a locked door. It was the man himself. The kind, simple dad who built tree houses was also a man who built a whole hidden life, and then a museum to his own guilt. He thought the secret would wound me, but the real damage was the lie. A cold, suffocating deceit that lingered like the scent of old wood and rust. In that moment, the air grew heavy with the metallic tang of guilt, and every whispered denial echoed in the silence. The truth, buried beneath layers of pretense, left a sticky residue of betrayal that no simple apology could ever cleanse. The lie that it was just us. The final shot. Emma closes the front door of the house for the last time. She doesn't look back. The camera lingers on the empty house, then slowly pushes down the hallway, back toward the open study door, now just a dark rectangle. A metallic scent, like old pennies, hangs in the still air. From the study's void comes the faint, dry sound of paper being slowly turned. Narrator. So I leave you with this. How well do you really know the people you love? What rooms in their hearts have they locked? Not to protect you, but to protect the version of themselves they want you to believe in? And if you heard that click in the lock, could you ever not turn the key? The metallic scent of old iron filled the space, mingling with the damp chill seeping from the wood. A faint, rhythmic scratching began from the other side, like nails on plaster. Every instinct screamed to flee, but the key felt fused to your palm, a terrible gravity holding you in place.